Did you know that Dune was once a green planet with water? This is one of the many interesting world building layers that Frank Herbert imbued into his desert planet, and this video is going to explain everything about the barren yet dynamic world. Dune, also known as Arrakis, is a fictional planet located in an actual star system called Canopus, which is 310 light years away from us. From planet side, the star is described as having a white light compared to our yellow sun. Despite the white sun, the planet hosts frequently dark skies, partly due to the lack of moisture within it. The planet's air is composed similarly to Earth's with 75% nitrogen and 23% oxygen. Arrakis has a planet-wide desert landscape with towering sand dunes and scorching temperatures reaching up to 158 degrees Fahrenheit or 70 degrees Celsius. The non-natives of this planet have to stop all activity when the sun reaches too high, which is why harvesting the spice melange is typically done during the morning or evening. Its desert belt and south polar regions are uninhabitable due to sandworms and sandstorms that can reach 800 kilometers per hour, cut through metal, and flay a person alive. Arrakis is orbited by two moons. The bigger one is the first to rise in the night and is notable for a distinct human hand pattern on its surface. The smaller one has a pattern resembling the desert kangaroo mouse native to Arrakis called Muad'Dib. The recent film explains that the moons have magnetic fields, so a common compass does not work on Arrakis. Instead, a paracompass is used to navigate the complex magnetic fields. Dune has a scarcity of water that deeply shapes the planet's ecology, culture, and conflicts. It never rains on Arrakis, and the planet's intense heat causes rapid evaporation of water. However, there is scant amounts of moisture within the planet's atmosphere. Both the Fremen and other civilians of Dunes utilize wind traps, which are specialized devices that capture and condense water vapors from the winds and collect it in underground reservoirs. The Fremen have also constructed intricate underground caverns known as sieges to store and distribute the water effectively within catch basins. Water riots actually occurred on Dune when Duke Leto announced a population increase on Arrakis, which led to an increase in demand and price of water that killed the very poor. Having 2 liters of water in the desert is considered wealth, so water becomes a valuable currency for the inhabitants of Dune. Water is so precious on the planet that even the dew must be collected. On an early morning, Duke Leto sees his servants sweeping the planted flower fields with a strange scythe-like device that gathers the morning dew. Water is so scarce that spitting towards someone is a sign of respect, because spitting is a loss of moisture from the body, moisture that is essential for survival in a scorching environment. Crying for the dead is considered sacred and seen as a holy act because it is a loss of moisture. To combat this moisture loss, the Fremen had developed the still suits, which recycle the body's moisture such as sweat and urine for drinking. Arrakis is the most important planet within the Dune universe because of its extremely powerful resource called the spice melange. The spice can be found on the planet's surface through rich spice beds that rise from subterranean areas. The spice is a reddish-brown powder with a distinct aroma of cinnamon and emits a captivating blue glow when seen in silver lighting. The spice is a psychoactive hallucinogen that grants remarkable powers to those who consume it. It preserves life and has many health benefits for the native Fremen that have been using it for thousands of years. Prolonged use of the spice has saturated the Fremen's blood and given them the distinct blue within blue eyes in both the iris and sclera, which are also known as the eyes of a bod. The spice is a gateway to achieving superhuman abilities such as accessing ancestral memories, looking into future possibilities, and folding space in interstellar travel. Space navigators are individuals who have undergone intense exposure to the spice to gain the ability to bypass traditional faster-than-light travel methods and instantaneously travel across vast distances. The navigator's abilities, referred to as the Holtzman effect, make interstellar travel possible and is vital for the galactic civilization. Because of this, the spice melange is the most valuable resource in the Dune universe. After harvesting the spice for only 80 years, House Harkonnen became richer than even the Emperor. The Bene Gesserit is a secretive and influential sisterhood that also uses spice in their selective breeding programs to manipulate bloodlines, seeking to create the Kwisatz Haderach, a superhuman being who can access all ancestral memories and create a better world. That being said, harvesting the spice is a very dangerous and complex process that involves carefully navigating the treacherous desert environment while avoiding the massive sandworms that protect the spice-rich areas. The harvesters enrage the worms who come racing to destroy the equipment. Due to the short time of harvesting, the harvesters stay until the very last second to obtain the spice while risking being consumed by the worms. The sandworms, also known as the Shai Halud, are massive creatures that can reach over 400 meters long, which is bigger than even the space guild ships. For comparison, the largest whale on Earth is the Arctic whale, which can reach 30 meters in length. This is not even 10% of the sandworms. Their bodies are cylindrical and covered in tough, segmented rings, allowing them to move through the desert with remarkable agility and power. The spice is produced as a byproduct of the sandworm's life cycle, making them essential to the production and regeneration of the spice. In the depths beneath the sands of Arrakis, sandworms larvae excrete fungi mixed with water, forming a pre-spice mass. The extreme heat of the planet causes the mass to explode into the surface. Under the intense heat and air, the pre-spice mass dries out and becomes the valuable melange spice. The sandworm's life cycle involves the release of sand trout upon the worm's death, thus restarting the process. Water is lethal to these creatures as their complex life cycle is directly tied to the spice's presence, which is why the Fremen revere these creatures and consider them sacred, often referring to them as the Great Maker, or the Old Man of the Desert. The sandworms live for thousands of years and fiercely protect the spice-rich areas of the desert. They are highly territorial creatures that cover over 400 kilometers each, and any disturbance or threat to their environment triggers a violent response. Their immense size and power, combined with their ability to sense even the faintest rhythmic movements such as footsteps, make them formidable creatures of the spice and key players in the struggle for control of Dune. This is why the Fremen developed the Sandwalk, which is a series of irregular movements that emulate the normal sounds of the desert. One of the most dangerous practices on Dune is sandworm riding. Children as young as the age of 12 ride these creatures by using hooks and thumpers to guide and control the sandworms to traverse the vast desert. Next, let's talk about the planet's ecology. Despite being a scorching desert, Dune hosts plenty of life forms beside the sandworms that have adapted to the desert, such as kit foxes, hares, and scorpions. Without the presence of water, all the birds such as eagles, owls, carrion eaters, and hawks on Dune have evolved to sense water from great distances and become blood drinkers to obtain their nutrients. The native bats have been domesticated by the Fremen to communicate over vast distances. Since it is a desert, there is almost no aquatic life on Dune. However, there is the predatory fish used to prevent the sand trout from depleting the Fremen's water reserves. Dune has some native plants that the Fremen have cultivated in the desert and their sieges, such as saguaro, burrow bush, weeds, cacti, sage, and incense bush. The Fremen utilize a flora such as the juice from the creosote bush, which inhibits precipitation. There are even patches of low grasses in the desert arroyos. Much of Dune's population is composed of the desert-dwelling Fremen living in sieges. Living within the harsh desert has turned the Fremen into a resilient and fierce people. The women as fierce as the men and even the children are regarded as being violent. They possess great combat skills and are adept at guerrilla warfare tactics, making them a formidable force against adversaries like the Harkonnens and the Sardaukar. Their culture is deeply intertwined with the ecological balance of the planet through the spice, sandworms, and the desert itself. For example, how they take care of their dead is through death stills, which is the process where the water inside a person's dead body is reclaimed. The Fremen also follow a religious belief system centered around the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib, the voice from the outer world, who is destined to lead them to a better future. That future is transforming Dune into a paradise for themselves. The Fremen bribe the Space and Guild with spice to secure privacy from satellite surveillance and gain control over the planet's skies. This is done to conceal their actual population and the preparations for terraforming Arrakis, such as discreetly increasing the caches of water reservoirs. Fremen people have died from thirst without being able to drink from them. That water is specifically stored for terraforming Arrakis. This is because the desert world was actually once a lush planet with water and greenery. The sandworms are said to have caused the desertification of Arrakis. This is evident by the presence of polar ice and salt flats on Dune, meaning that at some time, water had actually flowed across those flats. Also, Lady Jessica mentions that drilled wells initially yield a small flow of water that abruptly ceases, seemingly blocked by something. These water deposits are encrusted by the sand trout, and to safeguard the deposits from these trouts, predatory fishes are introduced into these water storages. It is also proposed that the sandworms responsible for the desertification of Arrakis are not native species of Dune and were actually introduced into the planet. In the book Children of Dune, Leto II explains to his twin sister that the sand trout were originally from another location and introduced when Arrakis was a wet planet. To survive, the sand trout encrusted all the available free water and multiplied excessively, therefore transforming the planet into a desert. This adaptation enabled the transition to the sandworm phase in an arid environment. So overall, the planet is a desolate and harsh world for survival. It is also replete with the most valuable resource known to mankind, and therefore the center point of all political power due to the superhuman powers provided by the spice. The worms are actually responsible for the desert on Dune and thrive within it. It will be very interesting to see how Denis Villeneuve continues his version of the story, as he is a brilliant film director who provided us with an amazing cinematic experience the first time around. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching.